Good afternoon, everybody. Who's having fun here? Come on. All right, this is cool. Wonderful. It's my pleasure to introduce our next author, our next Canadian author, Dr. Izzeldin Abuelaish. He asked me to call him Izzy. That's a little, I have to get used to that one, but Dr. Abuelaish is a medical doctor who was born and raised in Jabalia refugee camp in the Gaza Strip. He is a passionate and eloquent proponent of peace between Palestinians and Israelis and has dedicated his life to using health as a vehicle for peace. He is the first Palestinian doctor to receive an appointment in medicine at an Israeli hospital. Dr. Abuelaish has overcome many personal hardships, including poverty, violence, and the horrific loss of his 3 daughters and a niece in the 2009 Gaza war. Despite this, his doctrine, his profound belief, is that hate is not a response to war, and that it is possible to live in harmony with others, even though we may perceive differences in others. He is the founder and leader of the very important Daughters for Life Foundation. Dr. Abuelaish is now one of the most outspoken, prominent, and beloved educators and public speakers on peace and development in the Middle East and elsewhere in the world. His home is now Canada, and from our discussion, I know that he believes that while Canada is not perfect by any means, there are lessons we can share with the world in respect to welcoming foreigners and welcoming refugees. Thank you so much, and I introduce the next panel.
Thank you.
Good afternoon. Can everyone hear me? My name's Michael Patrick MacDonald, and it's an incredible honor to be here to interview Izzy, Dr. Abuelaish, and everything I've read and listened to over the past few weeks has really changed my life, and I feel like I've been engaged as an activist and organizer around violence and transformative justice and all this stuff for years, but this has kind of like brought me into a whole new way of thinking about a lot of things in these very troubled times that we're living in. I'm going to open with a passage from my first book, All Souls. It's just a paragraph I'd like to read because it's a point in my own history where I fantasized about revenge. I come from the housing projects in South Boston and come from a family that I lost 4 siblings to violence and poverty growing up in Old Colony Housing Project in Boston, and also a sister who's severely paralyzed after being pushed off a roof in the housing projects as well. And the passage I'm going to read is in the immediate aftermath of my little brother, Stephen. He was 13 years old. After all that other stuff that had happened, my little brother, Stephen, was 13 and was falsely accused by a lot of the same kind of powers that were in the neighborhood, falsely accused of murdering his best friend. He found his best friend with a gunshot wound to the head. He was 13. His best friend was 13. And the passage I'm going to read is just a paragraph from finding out that the police had falsified the transcripts of this 13-year-old, my little brother's call to 911. And then after all those years of various things that happened, really engaging in a fantasy of violence. And I want to start there just because I think a lot of what we're going to talk about is emerging out of that and the alternatives to revenge and to vengeance. And there's really no greater example than Dr. Abuelaish here. So this is after finding out that the calls to 9/11 had been falsified, so that this was intentional state corruption happening around a 13-year-old in a very poor housing project. I fled the lawyer's office. I wanted to get back to my little brother Stephen to tell him what I'd heard on the tape. and to apologize for questioning him even for one moment. I sped on the highway back to the Cape. It started to rain. The rain beat down on the car, and my heart felt as if it would explode with hate. I wanted to murder. I was sure of it. I thought of 10 people I would kill. But the amount of suffering I would inflict on them could never match the pain I was feeling for a helpless child railroaded by a cast of demons. Agents of the state, district attorneys, cops and detectives, the police commissioner who ran a department so corrupt it would send children in neighborhoods to hell before admitting a mistake, even the mayor. I pulled over to fantasize about killing every last one of them, and about how to make it worthwhile I'd have to keep from getting caught until I'd gotten them all. But in the next minute, I only wanted to die myself. The world's nothing but pain. It'll never get better. It's completely useless. Stevie's going to be found guilty of something he didn't do, and how much more suffering and death will that lead to? How soon will Stevie be found hanging in a prison cell? I felt the pain of all these thoughts converging, and I wanted out. I thought about Tommy, the boy who died, and about the brothers I hadn't had time to cry for, ever, and about my mother, whose suffering seemed never-ending. The rain poured down so that the windshield wipers couldn't keep up. I was stuck there on the side of the road, and I realized that I could just put the car into drive and press the gas pedal and kill myself right then. I couldn't see anything through tears and rain. I couldn't do it, though, and I decided then that if I ever made it out of this storm, I'd have to spend my life fighting, not only for Stevie, but for everything else that had happened over the years, for the dignity of my family, and for other families like mine. I didn't even have words for what I was promising myself, but something told me that I was making a lifelong commitment. It was justice I wanted, that's all. I wasn't even sure I knew what justice was anymore, but I knew it had to be sweeter than blood. So I wanted to read that because I feel like Dr. Abuelaish is the embodiment of all the alternatives to that. I went into the depths of despair, as many people do. Fortunately, I didn't take it to the next steps and didn't succumb to those fantasies of revenge, and then got into a life of community organizing and peace building. But I have to say that through all the years I've been doing that, and these are very different experiences. They shouldn't ever be compared in any way, but that's what I know, and that's the closest I ever came to ever understanding what it might be to fantasize about revenge. And just reading Dr. Abouelaish's book, even after 30 years of community building and peace building, I feel like he really helps take us all, organizers, activists, peace builders, anybody who's interested in transforming this very troubling world at the moment. He takes us all into another level of the work that we have to do. So with that, I want to welcome Dr. Abuelaish to the stage here.
First, I learned the one who is not thankful to people is not thankful to God. So I thank all of the organizers who organized this event, the Canadian Consul General, and the audience who came to participate, because in this way we can learn from each other and to give hope and to spread hope in this world. I heard, what did you say about revenge and anger in times of the challenges we face in life? Because life is full of challenges. And I say it, as a medical doctor, if you go to the intensive care unit and you see the ECG of any patient, if it is a flat line, it means death. Life, it means an ECG ups and downs. So we need to have the skills, how we can go up and to challenge ourselves instead of challenging others. The biggest challenge in our world is individual responsibility. I faced many challenges, but the biggest challenge when I saw my daughters killed in front of me. At that moment, and what helped me to move forward, faith is helpful. I lost faith at that time in humanity because the world is watching what is happening. And as a medical doctor, when I see a patient suffering and the woman who is bleeding, As a gynecologist, I rushed to stop the bleeding. The world is watching what is happening these days, paralyzed, apathic about it. So I directed my face to the one who is awake, who watches us. I directed my face only and just only to God. So at that moment of seeing my daughters becoming bards, I didn't say any bad word, just to say, oh God, oh Lord, to give me the strength, patience, determination, and as a medical doctor, to think of the future, patient, what will happen next? What about my living children? What will happen to them? And the first message of support came from my son, whom I am proud of. He was 12 years old. Said, what is he going to be? To be violent? To be full of hatred? To commit suicide? To look for revenge? He looked at me and to say, why are you crying? Why are you screaming? You must be happy. He said, maybe he doesn't know that his sisters and niece were killed. He said, I know they were killed. But I know that they are happy there. They are with their mom, who asked for them because their mom passed away for months before. I said, if this son, 12 years old, to say this, what can I do? I have to move forward. And I move forward. As Einstein said, life is like riding a bicycle. To keep balanced, we must keep moving. I kept moving, stronger, more determined, not to forget my daughters and to keep them alive. And that's one of the messages of my daughter's Bisan, who was killed at the age of 20. She was a peace fighter. I sent her to peace camps. After she came at the age of 14 to say to me, to meet violence with violence doesn't solve any problem. Can we learn from our children? Can we listen to our children that they are wise enough to teach this world? Don't underestimate your children. Revenge will never bring my daughters back. And this is the only impossible thing in life I believe in, that I can't bring my daughters back to life, but I can keep them alive in my hearts, in my soul, in your hearts, in your souls, not with the bullet or the shell, because the bullet or the shell is the weapon of the weak. It's with wisdom, with kind, courageous, strong words, and with good deeds. And that's the mission I am carrying in life. I am living for my daughters who are just far from me, who are traveling, and for my living children.
Thank you. The route you've taken toward forgiveness isn't a simple one, of course. It's not an easy one. It's a very difficult one. And I love that in the book you make it clear that it's not just kind of a done deal. Forgiveness is not a done deal, that one has to continue to act to change the systems of repression that lead to harm and atrocities in people's lives. Can you talk a little bit more about the type of forgiveness that you're engaging in with justice, with acting for justice?
Because when we speak about forgiveness, to forgive whom? This is what we need to ask. And why do we want to forgive? And the requirements for forgiveness. I want to forgive first myself from any harm, from the anger, from the hatred, which I see hatred as a poison, as a destructive, contagious disease. It's a fire which burns the one who carries it and impacted with it. In order to move forward, I have to be healthy, strong, more determined if I want to keep my daughters alive. And if I want to achieve their goals, their dreams, to spread their message as young girls, whom I believe, young girls and women, are the messengers of humanity. Women who give life. Women who are the spirit of life. Women who nurture life. So I have to continue their message and to spread it. So I have to forgive myself from any harm, armed with their spirit, with their message. So I forgive myself. And even some people, they ask me about the one who killed my daughters. I don't blame him. I blame the situation, the context, which led this soldier or officer to give orders. It's the leadership who are in charge. Don't blame the act. Blame the context, the environment which led to this act. And even concerning revenge. If they ask me, this is the perpetrator or the offender. Do whatever you want. Am I going to revenge? Is it going to bring my daughters back? Because what is important for me is my daughters. I will never do harm by that. Even to the point I say, God bless the one who gave orders or shelled the house. How is he living? One day he will have children. To live his life when he knows, when he shelled the house, 3 daughters and niece and others were injured. And that's why I have to forgive myself and to keep moving forward. Even if they didn't apologize, I would appreciate if they apologized and to take responsibility in a positive way, to give hope and to move forward. We want both to move forward side by side.
About that apology, on the notion of apology, you recently were engaged in a lawsuit on the Israeli government seeking an apology, an acknowledgement. And one of the most moving things I heard you talk about in your pursuit of that is when an interviewer asked you, why is this important to you, this apology, this acknowledgement of wrongdoing and apology? You said, because it says that we are human. And it was as simple as that, and it's just a really profound message. Where does that come in? Like, as a person who grew up in the refugee camps and who experienced all the oppression that you experienced, including the murder of your daughters, this is something that a lot of us can't really always understand, that just being recognized as human is where it all comes from. This is not something that we're all, in the US, we're not always struggling. Most people in this room are not always struggling to be recognized as human, but this is a main central point in your life.
After the killing of my daughters, not to acknowledge what happened or to say we killed or we shelled the house, I have to struggle to prove that my daughters were human and were innocent. So I tried with every possible mean, peaceful way, just to give them the human face. These are young girls. Bisan, 20 years old. Mayar, 16. Aya was 14, and my niece Noor was 17. I taught them to be human and to advocate for a human cause. If I have 100 of them, I will thank God. Because I'm proud of them, even in their death as they were in their life. They never succeeded in their schools, less than 97% in their schools. Their teachers, all of the time, they were fighting to have them in their classes. So I have to fight even to give them the human face. Through my connections, my colleagues, the Israeli colleagues, the Knesset members, to reconcile it in a positive way and to give hope and to acknowledge what happened, not to blame. And that's what I will never use it as a blaming. We want to move forward, but they didn't. And there is a law in Israel. As a Palestinian and not Israeli, there is a statute of limitation. In 2 years, if you didn't file a lawsuit, it's gone. So 2 weeks before the deadline, I have to file a lawsuit. I filed it, and I tried also under the table through connections to reconcile it, but it didn't work. And 1 year later, to receive an email from the lawyer, because I am Palestinian, filing a lawsuit to an Israeli court. In case I lost the lawsuit, I have to pay financial bond, 20,000 shekel for each of my daughters and my niece. This is justice what we are seeking? Does justice depend on money or moral and human, ethical attitudes? I paid the amount of money because, as I said, I am committed to bring my daughters the human face. It took 7 years. Till 2017, I have go to there to testify at the court with my daughter, Shada, who was severely wounded, and my other daughter. We testified. Even my daughter, Shada, she said in the interviews, it's painful. You are a victim and you are coming to testify. And by the end, November 2018, the case was rejected, dismissed. This will never break me. This will never defeat me. I will continue. I appealed to the Israeli Supreme Court, and I said it clearly. I seek an apology and even any compensation to be dedicated to Daughters for Life Foundation. My dream, and I am working on it, to establish Daughters for Life International College for young women from this world who are in need. And that's what I am determined. And if there is no justice in this world, in my life, one day, justice will come. And that's why I will continue. It's painful, but will never distract me from my mission and what do I believe in to keep moving forward.
And thank you. And we'll talk about Daughters for Life Foundation. I'd like to talk more about that. But before we get to that, one of my favorite parts also in the book is where, you speak to the reader, you tell the reader, okay, now you know about this attack that took the lives of my 3 daughters. You know the details of this atrocity, but now I want to tell you about my daughters and who they are. And we get a sense of them in the kind of present tense as living, your daughters are. They're not a past tense. They're not past tense entities. But could you tell us a little bit about your daughters? And because I think it's one of the most beautiful passages in the book, each of your descriptions of your 3 daughters.
In my life, I am in debt to my mother, my wife, and my daughters. I will never be here without the support and courage of my mother and sacrifice of my wife and my daughters. And I learned from them that nothing is impossible in life. From Jabalia camp to get my MD from Cairo University, to specialize obstetrics and gynecology from the University of London, to work in Saudi Arabia, then to be the first Palestinian to practice medicine in Israel, back to London to have another subspecialty in IVF and infertility, and the last thing, to go to Harvard University to have a master in health systems and policy management. So I believe in them, and because of my daughter, they were They were my weak part in my life. I can't say no to them because what we call the paradise is under the feet of the mother. The mother who gives, who sacrifices. So my daughters, when I established Daughters for Life, because a friend of mine said to me, he's my close Israeli friend, Izzeldin, people will forget. I said to myself, am I going to forget? I started thinking, what can I do to prove to people that I didn't forget? Hearing the voices of Bisan, Mayar, Aya, and Noor, don't weep us, achieve our dreams, continue the journey we started. I can't say, and will never say, that they are dead. They are just away. They are traveling. They left quickly with a cheery smile. They left quickly like lightning. Even didn't say a word farewell. They have left. And personally, I was in bad need of them. Death is not the end and can never be the end. Death is the road and we are the travelers. The departure of our loved ones has large and great meanings. They didn't leave. They were the simplest people in their life and have great understanding of life. They are the closest to people with their souls and the spirits. They were never anyone's enemy. They refused to hate. That's why in their memory I established Daughters for Life Foundation for education of girls and young women from the Middle East, and hope to have it soon as international foundation for girls who are succeeding from social, economic, financial hardship, not based on ethnic, religious, or color background. And that's the impact, that's the blessing, that's the message I want to send, because I fully believe this world can endure and be a safe, peaceful, just, healthy, a free and a human one, only and just only with women's education, women's role. It's time for our leaders in this world to say and to change the scene. Behind the successful man, there is a successful woman. It's time to say, behind the successful woman, there is a successful man. And that's the way we can make a change in our world. I believe in it and I advocate for it. And I encourage you, we are not going to change the world. We want to start, each of us, to do our part. As Helen Keller said, I am one. But being one doesn't prevent me from doing my part. Don't underestimate yourself. Do your part in making a change in this world. By giving a smile, by giving a hand, by sharing from your energy, from your education, from your time, from anything you have, and you have many things to give to make the world a better one. Not to spend your time blaming others and to say it's hopeless. I say to you, and from here, it's a hopeful world, and it's our world. If we didn't take the responsibility, who is going to do it? Think of your children. What legacy do you want to inherit your children? We are accountable to our children. We want to inherit them and to prove to them that we love them. And if we love them, we want to inherit them, not a heavy mortgage. We want to inherit them a safe, secure, peaceful life and world.
Thank you. So Daughters for Life is gender specific. It's a foundation that works to promote the success of young women in particular. Your mother plays a powerful role in your life, your wife, your 3 daughters who were murdered, as well as your surviving daughters, have huge roles in your life. You also have 2 sons. And so just if you could say a little bit more about why you think it is so important for an organization to specifically work to assist the leadership of young women?
Daughters for Life Foundation is a registered Canadian charity. It has been there for about 8 years, and we hope to establish it now in the States, and it's in the process to establish it in Europe and UK. So this foundation for girls and young women, because we, as men and women, not competing, we are complementing each other, and we need to support each other, and we need to work with each other. This world is based mostly on women's efforts, but we need the work and the support of men to be educated and to understand and to promote the role of women by empowering them and providing them with the means, which is the right education. My children, my son Muhammad, who at that time he was 12, he graduated this year from Rotman School of Business at the University of Toronto. I am proud of all of my children who were traumatized. Where have we been and where are we now? 2 of my daughters graduated from the great university that I am working at and proud of, and to be among the top in the world, University of Toronto, from the School of Engineering, and I learned a lot from them. My daughter Shada, who graduated from the School of Engineering 2015, at the time of the tragedy, her eye and the globe ruptured, and her eye was on her cheek, and 2 fingers were torn. And she was treated at the hospital I am working at in Tel Aviv. 16th of January, 20th of January is her birthday. I said to her, Shada, we have to celebrate the birthday. We have to keep life. And she said to me, if I can't see with my right eye, I have my left. If I can't write with my right hand, I have to practice with my left hand. She lost the sight in her right eye, but didn't lose the vision. And she continued, and 16th of June 2015, he graduated from the School of Engineering at the University of Toronto. She proved the antidote of revenge, hatred, anger is education, wisdom, and moving forward. And that's what we need to learn from our children.
Thank you. The power of your story, sometimes when one story is that powerful, when you're reading the book, it can eclipse the idea that this is actually a book that was written, and I don't want to bypass the fact that this is a beautifully written book. This is what you've done is you've taken control of the story and given it as a gift to the world. Could you talk a little bit about the writing experience that you engaged in with this book? What role did it play? You had been a peacemaker for years, even before the atrocities happened. You had been engaging in reconciliation work for years. But taking it to this whole other level as a writer and then a person who's sharing the story with the world, what has that done? What has that part of the process done for you and for the story, for your daughters? Your living children as well as your children who have passed.
I don't see myself as a writer or an author. I am a medical doctor and proud of my job as a gynecologist to bring life and to give life. Because I believed and will continue to believe health, medicine are a human equalizer, stabilizer, socializer, and harmonizer. When you go to any hospital, everywhere, patients are not treated according to name, ethnicity, religion, or background, according to one thing, the diagnosis. So it equalizes between all. And the happiest moment for me, when I handle the baby to his mother. I feel the pain of the mother. And you see, after all of this pain, The cry of the newborn baby, a cry of hope, a cry of life, and the smile to spread. That's why what I am proud of, that I delivered thousands of babies. Can anyone to know the cry of to differentiate between the cry of a newborn Israeli, Palestinian, Canadian, American? We can't. As I said, it's a cry of hope, a new life. And always I was thinking, what the future, what life are we preparing for this newborn? I feel it because no one knows this suffering as the one who experienced it. No one knows the labor pain as women who delivered babies. That's why I wrote it to spread a universal message, not only about Palestinian-Israeli conflict. I wrote most of the part from where did I come as a Palestinian refugee and what did I achieve in life. Then the tragedy came. So I said, it's time. Everything has its time. The book has a universal, a human message of hope in this world. About positive psychology, about resilience, about tolerance, about understanding, about responsibility, about how can we face the life, its challenges. That's why I wrote it, and I will continue, because the challenge didn't stop with the tragedy. I hope soon to have the second book, and I will declare it here. The title of the book will be, I Shall Not Fear. Because fear in these days, we are trapped in fear, incitement, fear-mongering, discrimination, many challenges. Don't allow fear to approach you, and don't be a victim of this fear or this hatred.
I work with a lot of survivors of homicide victims throughout the country, and one thing that I'm often struck by is that what a lot of survivors of atrocities who go on to do activism, organizing, peace building in the world, to take that really painful thing and to transform it into their voice in the world. A lot of those people, what they all have in common is they have a moment when they said to themselves, this isn't just about me. This isn't just about my child who was murdered. That this is bigger than me. And one of the things I love about your epilogue is you start out with your hopes. In the epilogue, you say that your hopes are that the reader will have empathy for the Palestinian people, but also for victims around the world, victims of conflict around the world. So you're also engaging in that whole effort that's way bigger than what happened to you and your family in particular. Could you say a little bit more about what then bringing the story to those people gives back?
It gives back to the people to sensitize the people. As I said, to look around, to look inside themselves first. Because any change doesn't change from outside. Start by yourself first. Then you look around. Don't blame others. Look around, ask, learn, connect with others, and then you can, each of us, to start to act, to make the change. It's not, as I said, because the world is becoming smaller and smaller. The patterns of war, conflict is changing. And the one who is thinking is far from risk, he makes a mistake. We are impacted by conflict in any part of the world, either directly or indirectly. You see what is happening in Syria. All of the world is impacted by it. The States, Canada, everywhere. So it's time when we proact, not just to react, we need to proact. When we help others, we are not doing them a favor. We are protecting ourselves. As any other epidemic disease, if there is any epidemic Ebola in any part. Why all of the world to take actions? Because they want to protect themselves from spreading. As these diseases, they cross barriers. Hatred, incitement, fear, diseases, they cross barriers. So it's time for a collaborative work by all of us to take responsibility in order to contain and eradicate these diseases.
Before we open it up to questions from all of you, I'd like to ask Izzeldin if he could read a passage from I Shall Not Hate.
I will read this poem, which was written by an Israeli friend, woman. She wrote it. She knows my daughters, Bisan, Mayar, Aya, and Shada, and she spent 6 weeks with Shada at the hospital. And this poem is directed to everyone, in particular to men and political leaders. And I hope someone to deliver it to President Trump. Where love resides. In memory of Bisan, I long to touch you, Bisan, one more time, to hug you, to tell you how sorry I am that your mom died, but now you too are gone. Your smiling face, your gentle way, your softness, your non-judgmental words, your pain for your people, your way of life, your dreams, aspirations, and your hope for peace. Just days before the war, I spoke with your dad. He gave me your phone number. It's still in my car. Every day I glance at the number. Seeing your name, Bisan, I wish I had spoken with you more, but I didn't have the guts. I spoke with you 3 days before you died. I told you that I am praying for your safety. My prayers were not heard. Through the shelling, the bombing, the Qassams, the smoke, I feel I have been betrayed by God, by my country, by the cruelty of humanity, by the warmongers, by those who think violence is the solution. And with all of this, I have been given a gift. To have spent 6 weeks with Shada Izzeldin, I heard no words of revenge, nor hatred. I heard no anger. I heard the deep belief that peace is possible. Even with this enormous loss, I have been strengthened from their strength. I am more determined from their determination. I am more at peace from their peacefulness. Bisan, forgive me for not being able to save you from my people. Forgive me for giving you hope that peace is possible and then taking that dream from you. You will be always my symbol of hope, peace, and mostly gentleness. Your dad shared the dream with me days after you died, and this is a real dream while I am at the hospital, and I told an ill. He came into a room full of men, and there you were sitting amongst them. He asked you, why are you sitting here, Bisan? You know, it's not acceptable in our society. You answered, all is fine now, Dad. I am happy and well. I can be here now among the men where I am needed. May no other woman need to die in order to be able to influence the men as you have, Bisan. May we women be heard. May we women be heard and heeded. And may the men in this world get the chance to know from deep within their hearts, this is where the answer lies, in their hearts, where love resides. Thank you, and God bless you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you all. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
I think all of your work is a prayer. You know, your work as a doctor, your work as an organizer, a peace builder, and a writer. I want to give now opportunity to people in the audience to ask any questions. And Abby is the person with the microphone?
Yes, we'll have two microphones. Okay. I would just like to say, raise your hand if you would like to ask a question. And also, I am sure the stories we've heard from Michael and Dr. Abuelaish bring up a lot of deep feelings in people and our own stories, but we have a very short period of time, so we ask you just to please ask simple questions as much as possible. If you have a longer conversation you'd like to have, you can have it after the session, because both Michael and Dr. Abuelaish will be down signing their books right downstairs. So I would like to begin, because a shy person passed me a note. You mentioned, Doctor, the 3 elements of forgiveness. Can you review those 3, please?
What is forgiveness? Why do we want to forgive? Whom to forgive? And what are the requirements for forgiveness?
So you just hand it.
So we want to forgive in order to move forward. But whom do we want to forgive? Of course, always there is a victim and offender, and there is an act, a harm happened. Of course, if we want to forgive and to the forgiveness to have a good meaning, the offender to acknowledge what happened and to ask for forgiveness. At that time, the moral responsibility of the victim to forgive the offender. But even if the offender, as a result of fear, the ego, the power, whatever the cause, is not willing, and the victim may be a weak one. So I recommend the victim to forgive himself from thinking of what happened and to move forward, because it's not the end of the world. We face this challenge, and the offender, don't be broken by that offense, what happened. And it's not the end. Even I say to people, I'm sure you watch soccer games. And the World Cup, if any team to score a goal at the start of the game, does this mean that this team will win the game? We have 89 minutes. So we need to keep moving forward and not to be distracted by this 1 minute to disturb our 89 minutes in life. We want to keep moving forward and not to disturb it. And that's what I believe in, and that's what is needed, and that's what we call it. If you have $84,000 and $400 and someone to steal from you $10, are you going to spend your time running after him to get the $10, or do you want arguing with them where you may lose the others? And that's the 84,400 is the seconds of the day. Don't waste your time. Don't waste it. Lost $10. I have 84,390. And that's what is needed. If I lost once, it's not the end of the world. I have more time to succeed and to score more goals.
This week, one of our Jaipur authors, Camilla Shamsi, had a prize taken away from her in Germany because she supported the BDS movement, the boycott and disinvestment of Israel. one side sees this as anti-Semitic, another sees it as a non-violent way of opposing Israeli occupation and modeling itself on the South African BDS movement. Where do you stand on that?
You know, number one, concerning the anti-Semitic, I encourage you to look and to find what is the definition of a Semite. Who is the Semite? I am a Semite. Can myself be anti-myself? I love and respect Jewish people. I love and respect all of the people of faiths. Whether they have faiths or not, I deal with them as people and respect them. But we must not politicize anything else to say, do you criticize Trump or not? As Americans, do you criticize your administration or not? No one is perfect. I criticize the Palestinian Authority. I criticize Hamas. I speak loudly about them. Why not, when it comes to the Israeli administration, I'm not talking about Jewish. About the Israeli administration, what do they do? Immediate someone to jump and to say you are anti-Semite. I didn't speak about Jewish. We are, even I say it, we are cousins. We are cousins, and there is a lot of commonalities between us as Palestinians and Israelis, more than any other nation. But we need to speak out about the violations and what is happening on the ground in the occupied Palestinian territories. It's an occupied nation and occupied territories. And we appeal to you as people of faith, of conscience, life conscience, to end with the BDS, but get rid of the occupation. Once the occupation is over, then nothing. We don't want to have any boycott against anyone. It's not a strategy. It's a way that we want to wake. And sometimes you take actions against your son, your daughter, because you love them and you want them to behave in the good way. So we would love the Israeli administration. I am talking, and this is one of the messages I learned, and even in the book, not to generalize. Not to generalize. And we need to separate between the public and the administration. The American administration and the Israeli administration to act in a fair and just way. And even I ask any Israeli, any American, take it up to the heart. What do you accept for yourself? We as Palestinians, we accept it. If you accept it for yourself, what is going on in the field back home, then we accept it. Put yourself in the shoe of the Palestinians, and then everything will be solved. I asked Netanyahu, what do you want for your children? For your future generations? How do you want them to live? Are they equal to the Palestinians or not? No one would accept to be less than the others. We are born equal, and we are born free, and we have to run an equal, free life in this world.
Thank you, Dr. Abuelaish, for your courage and your determination. As with a case of a physical, life-threatening illness in our body, it's important to have it correctly diagnosed. Could you address the fact that our country is funding the oppressive system of apartheid to the tune of $10 million a day, $4 billion a year to Israel?
Yeah, of course, you see the American administration, where I said it, I don't blame the American public. And we need to discriminate, and not to discriminate, to differentiate between the public and the administration. But at the same time, all of the time we as people, we blame and criticize the administrations as if they are coming from another planet. These people, these leaders, they came not with parachute and to come from the sky. We voted for them. It's our responsibility. So instead of blaming them, it's our responsibility when you vote to vote for the right people and to let them all of the time be accountable and to feel that their chairs are shaking. And you can, as you brought them, you can kick them away. It's our responsibility. Don't underestimate your power. You have the power to make the change. And that's the first thing if we want to witness a change, by selecting and choosing the right people who can advocate, and they are risk takers, not practicing politics to stay in power and to keep in power. We want people who are honest. I say we need political leaders who are risk takers, who humanize, not to politicize.
And just to reinforce that too, as an American, you know, a lot of times when we talk about conflict resolution, we're talking about situations in the past. This is not a post-conflict situation. This is life and death every day on the streets of Gaza, and it's an asymmetry of power, and one that we as Americans are engaged in. So it's just important to keep that in mind when we leave here today, that this is not some faraway conflict or a conflict from the past. This is an ongoing oppression that we are engaged in.
So I want to say it really, you know, I said it to many Israeli friends that I have. And I don't use the word enemy as many others to think of the Palestinians as enemy. We are cousins, we are neighbors, and we have good relations. And I say to many leaders, if they don't have a good word, not to say the bad one, not to spread incitement and to use it for political agenda as it is happening these days. The biggest ally to the Israelis is the Palestinians, because they are neighbors. And we were born as if we were born to live together. We are like conjoined twins. Conjoined twins. We live and ride one boat. And we must not allow anyone to do harm to this boat. The Israelis' safety, security, freedom, future and independence is linked and dependent on the Palestinian safety, security, freedom, and the future. They are not safe as long as Palestinians are not. So try to help both to be safe, to be secure, and to be free. Thank you.
As is our security dependent upon the security of oppressed people around the world.
Okay, we have time for one more. This lady in the back.
I would love to know more, thank you for all of your work, how we could support the Daughters for Life Foundation. I'm curious how much the lawsuit set you back financially, the reasoning why the judicial system did not rule in your favor, but how we can offset that today and support your foundation on behalf of your daughters. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I would love to see Daughters for Life established in the United States. And we have the papers, everything. We need good people who are willing to take it to the heart, to move it ahead, and to find university partners to partner with Daughters for Life, as we have. We have many universities in the States. Manhattanville College, Rochester University, New College of Florida, University of Pennsylvania, other universities to partner and to support Daughters for Life in addition to the public. So this is important. We would love to see it happening and to see young women coming from these countries, Palestinians, Israelis, Jordanians, whatever, not related, as I said, to ethnicity or religion, to study here, and they are not coming to learn. I am sure Americans can learn from these girls to see who are they, and they will be ambassadors of the American goodwillness and the goodwill of the people. So would appreciate if we can establish it. And of course, we have Daughters for Life website, www.daughtersforlife.com, as a registered Canadian charity. So anyone who is willing to donate, to support, and to establish it here, once we established it in the States, we can issue tax receipts from the States. Concerning the lawsuit, believe me, I am committed to that, because it's part, as I do for my living daughters, I will do it and hope one day we will succeed and will get it to establish the Daughters for Life International College.
So, social change really begins with the sharing of our stories, the sharing of these stories. I just want to finish by thanking JLF for making this space possible, where we can hear these stories throughout this entire weekend, and to make the work of storytelling about the work of making the world a better place. And the global aspect of JLF is an amazing thing, that we can have these stories at the local level and the global level. So thank you to all of the people working for them.
To mention, to acknowledge, even I arrived yesterday, I met with an American, he's an American now, but once he introduced, he said to me, I am an Israeli. And of course, he knows me and his daughter. His family is Dayan family. Where is he? He is there. 5 years ago, his daughter donated and supported for Daughters for Life. And even just now, really, he came to introduce himself to me and to give me a letter. He said to me, I am from Israel. And this letter is written not in English or Hebrew. It's written in Arabic. You see the commonalities, and that's the hope we want to spread in this world, and how close are we in our world. Thank you.
Thank you so much.